Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his ministers resigned to President Draupadi Murmu, leading to the dissolution of the 17th Lok Sabha. The BJP-led NDA, supported by TDP and JDU, will form the next government. Modi's swearing-in is expected to take place on June 8th after an NDA meeting on June 7th. Caretaker PM Narendra Modi will invite neighbouring leaders to his June 8th swearing-in, including those from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal and Mauritius. Expected attendees are Bhutanese PM Shering Tobge, Mauritius PM Pravind Jugnauth, Nepalese PM Pushpa Kamal Dahal, and we're also learning at this point of time that Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is also expected to be there. In fact, I'm going to go to the big wall there. We're going to give you an understanding on who exactly we are expecting to be there for the swearing-in ceremony of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's now consecutively for the third time, he's now going to become the Prime Minister. All right, we have it over here on our screens. PM's historic third term. Of course, who's likely to attend? So, of course, Ranil Wickremesinghe, President of Sri Lanka, is expected to be there for He's expected to be there for the swearing-in ceremony, giving you a more better understanding. Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister of Bangladesh, also expected to be there for the swearing-in ceremony of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Taking a look at some more world leaders expected. We have Pushpa Kamal Dahal, Prime Minister of Nepal, also expected to be there for the swearing-in ceremony. More, in fact, world leaders we're expecting Shering Tobge, Prime Minister of Bhutan, to also be there present at the swearing-in ceremony. Here we have some more names coming in at this point of time, more world leaders. Pravind Jugnauth, Prime Minister of Mauritius, also expected to be there for the swearing-in ceremony. Of course, for the third term of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we also have Dinesh Gunawardena, Prime Minister Sri Lanka, to also be there and also be there present at the swearing-in ceremony. All right. In fact, joining us at this point of time is editor of the Sunday Guardian, Ms. Joyita Basu. Ma'am, thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX. Now, you know, of course, a third, everyone in the BJP, whoever is in the BJP, it's a momentous occasion for them because Prime Minister Narendra Modi has secured a consecutive third term, and this is happening after Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru got his third term in 1962. How do you view all of this?
It's absolutely momentous, and frankly speaking, if you ask me, I'm definitely not going to compare it with what Nehru achieved at that time, because you see, those were very different times. Those were calmer times, those were simpler times when you know, politics did not have this kind of aggression that you see in Indian politics now. Mr. Nehru did not have to encounter the, I would say, virulence of the opposition at that time. He did not, so it's, I mean, that he was basically just, it was a cakewalk for him. So, I mean, there is no way that I am going to compare it with Nehru's becoming Prime Minister for 3 times. So, that way, if you ask me, this is a far bigger achievement, because when you are looking at the kind of troubles that the world is going through that to, navigate India through that. So, think of post-COVID, the COVID situation that took place in his second term. And from there, India is one of those rare countries that did not get into recession. And so, if you are looking at that and the fallout of the Ukraine war, Russia-Ukraine war, which caused such disruptions, and particularly, you know, supply chain disruptions took place. So, all these things have to be taken into account. So, I mean, although they went into the polling with the slogan of 400 par and all, which obviously did not happen, but if you start going to the nitty-gritty, you realize how difficult it was, this particular journey, and to have overcome all that and to reach where where Mr. Modi has reached, I think it's absolutely brilliant. And what he is looking at, he's basically looking at his neighborhood. When this is in keeping with the government's policy, because one of the main, I mean, when you look talking about the Foreign Ministry, Ministry of External Affairs, one of their main areas is neighborhood first. So, this is what we are looking at. This is a neighborhood first policy in motion, When you are looking at the first 2014, it was SARC, South Asian, that focus was at that time. In all these years, SARC is gone. Instead, what we have is neighborhood first, and this is neighborhood first policy in action.
Right, absolutely. In fact, joining us at this point of time is Mr. Alok Mehta, Editorial Director of India News. We're also, in fact, being joined by Pratim Bose, who's a senior journalist. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX. Now, I'm going to start with Mr. Alok Mehta. There is a battle of narratives right now, but the bottom line is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi gets a historic third term. What does that mean?
Joitaji already mentioned about it. You can't compare with Nehru because a non-Congress Prime Minister also, because Morarji Desai was also a Congress man, but he could not continue for a long time. So this third time, a non-Congress leader ruled in India, and certainly because it was more difficult with the constituency. At the time of Nehru era, there was a constituency of 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh, and 50,000 or 60,000 of constituencies were there at the time. Now you see 15 to 20 lakhs. The expectation so high. Modern technology is also different, and the number of political parties, you see, nowhere in the world you will find so many parties, because in our democracy is so strong, and opposition is also, because in democracy, whatever people say, that's why 2014, 2019, and now you see political parties, they also changed, shifted from one to other places. They also tried to fight with Narendra Modi, and then even then he got more than 240 seats. That's why I think you can't compare the other prime ministers also. It's a historical moment for India because we are showing the world, and you see this machine, electronic voting machine. Now people can understand how reliable these machines. That's why all over the world, President Biden called Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulate. Presidents, other prime ministers are also from Italy or Japan. Number of people they are calling Prime Minister to congratulate. It shows that the strength and democracy of India is so strong, and that's why we should be proud about it instead of just because sometimes you have to correct each other. And one last point, in Nehru era, you see what happened. B.R. Ambedkar, the constitutional maker, was defeated by Congress party. Can you imagine? That time, everybody is talking, still the other parties are talking constitution, we want to save the constitution, the Rahul Gandhi and Khargeji. But they don't they remember that Ambedkar was defeated by their own people in those days, in early years of the democracy. But it was part of democracy, so I'm not commenting much, but even then, that's why they claim the constitution. Now we are more, our Supreme Court is so strong. For every moment, for Election Commission and the Supreme Court. At the time, there was no interference from those quarters.
Right, absolutely. Now, in fact, I'd like to rope in Mr. Bose on the broadcast, and I'd like to understand from you, do you think that a coalition government would perhaps deter PM Modi from taking strong decisions?
It is to be seen. Theoretically, it should deter, because when you are on your own, you have the numbers, you can do many things. Having said so, given the structure of the parliament, it was not that easy. BJP never had a majority in fact, all ruling parties in India for pretty long time, they don't have majority in the upper house. So the bills gets blocked. We must not forget that after during Modi 1.0, land acquisition bill was it didn't get it could not be passed. So there were several things that got stuck in the parliament. So that way, theoretically speaking, I think running a coalition government with this kind of numbers may not be that difficult, but temperamentally or sentimentally, things can be a little difficult. Those who were not raising voice against you might raise their voice, and that includes, that might impact your policy decisions. For example, let me just draw from the other two panelists. right at this moment, the competition, the geopolitical contest is at its peak. The UN framework that was there is undergoing a restructuring or will go. It's all everything is collapsing. At this stage, India was, whatever the Modi government has been doing at the global stage, it had a backing of 1.4 billion people. Now, the question is, the moment you get a little, weak on that part, at least sentimentally, then in this tough neighborhood, there would be efforts to take advantage of you. Don't forget that Nepal is next to Bihar, and Bihar is a coalition partner to this government. It was always there, but this government will be having at least slightly lesser room to take decisions on its own. But it can be overcome. At the same time, these all are theoretical. It might as well. I just saw today that JDU said that they are in favor of one nation, one election. Right? Now, that's very interesting. So, you see, let us not forget that India's biggest reforms took place in 1991, and it was done by a minority government. So there are both ends of the spectrum. If it's about you, how you see it.
Right, absolutely. I'd like to, in fact, rope in Ms. Basu into the broadcast, ma'am. Where does this election win cement PM Modi in India's political history? What's your assessment on that front?
Well, if you ask me in terms of India's political history, PM Modi has already sealed his place. Don't forget that it was under him that Article 3, forget about everything else. What is his single biggest legacy when it comes to history? It is a removal of Article 370. Could we even imagine 6 years back, 5 years back in 2019 May, that we will be going to Lal Chowk in Srinagar and the Indian flag will be fluttering over there? Of course, we know the separatist that Rashid Engineer is now an elected member of parliament, but that is what the quirks of democracy are about. Certain things will be coming in, but the fact of the matter is that the very fact that, Kashmir has come out to vote wholeheartedly, and that we are not really talking about separatism, that even the separatists are becoming mainstream. So I think, something that is itself remarkable. So, and when you are looking at this term, so we have to see, of course, I think UCC, one nation, one election will be very interesting, because that will require constitutional amendment, and whether it is not just about bringing the allies on board, it is also going to be about, you have to go across the aisle and you have to talk to the opposition parties also. I think one nation, one election is going to be extremely tricky, but UCC is a possibility. So the thing is, if you have a strong Prime Minister, in spite of all that talk about, oh, he has been weakened and this and that, when it comes to the interest of the nation and when political parties start realizing that, it is in their interest certain things, and maybe their vote bank will not slip, that is where the problem arises. Political parties start resisting reforms, it could be political, economic, everything, when they start seeing their vote banks slipping. So if that can be convinced, it is possible. So it is very encouraging that the JDU is saying they are not against it. And then after that, I think in fact, Nirmala Sitharaman, in her interview to the Sunday Guardian, had talked about, say, economic reforms will have to go down to the third tier of government, elected government, meaning economic reform will have to reach the level of urban local bodies and village panchayats. They are talking about they need to improve their, say, for example, that land acquisition law, those things, there has to be reform in terms of healthcare, education. If you are looking at it, I think all these areas a lot has been done and a lot more can be done. So let us see. But at the same time, if you are looking at one single point, I think Article 370 has already been done, and now let us see if he can bring in UCC and one nation, one election. That is going to be, those are going to be the defining features of Modi legacy.
Right, absolutely. Now, I'd in fact like to rope in Mr. Mehta into the broadcast, and I'd like to understand your perspectives on the same. Where does this election win cement PM Modi in India's political history? What's your assessment on that front?
You see, in political history, welfare of the people, what the dream of Mahatma Gandhi. That's why this Ayushman Bharat Yojana want to implement for all over India for above the 70-year-old people. You see, these kind of schemes, the health and education. The problem is in the constitutional. At the time when the constitution they were preparing constitution, they never thought that this kind of state government will come, which will create problems even the welfare schemes. Unfortunately, what happened in the last 10 years, that even including Delhi, Kejriwal government or in some other governments also, the Congress government, they said, no, we are not ready to accept the Ayushman Bharat, even for poor people, 5 lakhs of insurance. So these kind of major development, what Prime Minister Narendra Modi wanted to do. And about the awareness of the employment schemes, because this was the major issue, because this is a political, it's a social issue, but this is a political issue also. Because on these kind of issues, people come in power for an instability will be there, and then the problem. That's why I think, and then the judiciary reform. Since long we were talking about the reform in judiciary, the power, because sometimes what's happening, 3 crores, 4 crores cases are pending. How we can strengthen these, and that's why we want that in Supreme Court also the power, who will select, because now what happened, judge also select the same judge from the community, maybe son or daughter. This kind of allegations also come, and even it's on facts. So these kind of new rules, regulations, changes, policies, it will go a long way. Like talaq, what the Prime Minister Narendra Modi did for society, it was decision by the Parliament. Like a 370, it was a historical decision. The same thing like talaq, because it's nowhere in any democratic country this kind of Islamic law will prevail. It was not even the law. When the Iran or nearby Pakistan, they never followed this kind of fourth marriage and all. But here, because in the name of religion, people are using it. Now they stop this kind of by regulation. So these kind of reforms, I hope and wish, and I think they have already planned. That's why 100 days plan or 125 days plan already on the table of the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. Even the opposition were asking why you have prepared this. Somebody is coming to power, or even the other person, there's a social or economic reform or development. How it's a prepared document, then you can implement it.
Right, absolutely. I'd in fact like to rope in Mr. Bose into the broadcast. One win in Kerala, government in Andhra, 8 seats in Telangana and holding on to Karnataka. Does this election mark PM Modi as not just a winner in the north but also in the south too?
100%. This election in this election, BJP established its footprints across India. They were, in parts of south, but they breached, got the their vote share entered double digit in Tamil Nadu, and they got a seat in Kerala after so many years of initiatives, such a long initiative. So it's very historic for them. It's in the north. See, if we look at it, they did expand. It is only that they failed in their core constituency, that is UP. That is where they failed, and that is what had hurt them, to get the majority mark. That is it. In so far as Mr. Modi, and you were saying about his, what is so historic about it. I will say, after 1991 reforms, and to some extent some reforms and etc. during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, the huge boom during UPA era that was global at that time, and then the burst. From a state of despair, Mr. Modi instilled hope about and made us bullish to think about a developed India in 2047. That was his biggest contribution, and he just moved ahead with that. So going forward, the challenge for the government it is whether it's coalition, whether it's single party majority, is to continue this tempo. We have to grow at this rate or at higher rate for another 10 years. And we have to strengthen our security apparatus. We have a lot of tasks which were pending for so many years that was coming up.
Right.
We have to improve our infrastructure to the next level so that we can compete with, we can remain in competition to be one of the top, to be a developed country.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. With that, I'd like to thank all our guests for joining us on the broadcast.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.